This is a podcast from Torfaen Voluntary Alliance. Hello, I'm Patrick Downs. Welcome to Word from the Third, where we'll be taking a look at all the big stories and news from the third sector here in Torfaen. Joined today then by Esther Weller from Sight Cymru. Now, Esther, can you tell me more about the services that Sight Cymru offer?
Yes, Sight Cymru, we're a charity based in Pontypool, and we support people with sight loss. So we've got various services. So we've got a team of rehabilitation officers, and they're the people who offer the face-to-face mobility training. If individuals need a bit of help around the house, these officers can go into the house, do an assessment, and make life easier for people with sight loss around the house to get around. ECLOs, we have a team of ECLOs, and they are the eye clinic liaison officers. So they are the link between the eye clinics at the hospital and the individual. And they can offer information, they can stay with the service user while they're having injections in the eye, for example. So they're a great link between the patient and the hospital. We've got all sorts of other services. So in our office in Pontypool, we've got a resource centre. So people with sight loss can come and look at the aids and adaptations. So we've got all sorts of things: talking watches, large print playing cards, large print puzzle books, big button phones. So all sorts of things that make life easier for individuals with sight loss. We've got it on display at the resource centre. People can try it out and buy it, and we've got knowledgeable staff who can advise them.
You talk about the staff, but are there any volunteering opportunities then?
Yes, we have. We've got various services that are run primarily by volunteers. So we've got a talking news service, and that is each week a team of volunteers go into the office, they record local news articles, features from different magazines. So they record it, put it on a memory stick, and then are able to send it out to people with a sight loss. So people can still get the news, read articles from their magazines in an audio format. So we're always looking for volunteers to read out these articles. We offer a ring around service, which again is run by volunteers. And this is a service where volunteers ring each week. They ring people with sight loss who are isolated and just in need of a chat. Got an extra service as well, an emotional support service. So if people need a bit more of an emotional support, we've got that sort of service, all run by volunteers. So we've got plenty of volunteering opportunities for people if people are interested.
What about training to community groups, that sort of thing?
Yeah, we do offer training. We can come, at the moment we're offering it virtually. We can offer a sight awareness training session to organisations. So in that training session, we cover things like the main eye conditions, how it affects people, the impact on their daily life. And we talk to organisations, businesses, about how they can make the services more accessible for people with sight loss. So if anyone is interested in having that training, by all means get in touch with us. We're more than happy to deliver that session, that training to your organisation, and it's all free of charge.
You kind of touched upon it there, but how can an organisation be made more accessible for people with sight loss?
Yeah, well, we do that. That is exactly what we do cover in the training. But really, when I'm delivering the training, we talk about three main barriers. So we talk about the environmental barriers, and they are things like the physical obstacles that prevent people with sight loss from accessing services. So it could be no drop curbs, steps when people can't get up the steps. It could be communication in an accessible format. So any of the physical obstacles that actually prevent someone from accessing community, accessing a service, they are what's known as environmental barriers. Institutional barriers then are those barriers such as policies, practices, so organisational practices, wide-scale practices that discriminate against an individual. For example, there may be an organisation may have a policy which says no dogs are allowed, and that immediately discriminates against a guide dog user. So in that way, that's an institutional barrier. And then the third type of barrier which we talk about are the attitudinal barriers, and they are things like just discrimination, having an attitude of disability, seeing disability as a tragedy. We touch upon and we focus really on the social model as opposed to the medical model, and so we shift the responsibility onto society to change rather than the individual to change. So go into that a lot in the training, but really there's lots of things that we talk to organisations about how they can make their service accessible.
And the question really is, has the pandemic affected your work at all?
Yeah, Yes, no, good question. Yeah, it has. I mentioned our team of rehabilitation officers. Well, they carry out assessments, face-to-face assessments before they know how to work with the individual. Of course, all of that stopped. All of the face-to-face visits stopped. So our rehabilitation officers were relying on the phone, which was not ideal. That, thankfully, has started again. They've taken all sorts of precautions, PPE, for example. So that face-to-face home visits have restarted. The emotional support service, which I mentioned earlier on, that has started as a result of the pandemic. At the beginning, we took a decision to ring around all of the people on our database just to find out how they were doing, really, how they were coping. And we realised that there was such a need to support people emotionally at this time that it's carried on, and we were lucky then to secure a little bit of funding. We've invested training, and we've got a good team of staff and volunteers carrying out the service. And that is all as a result of the pandemic. Groups, we run a series of support groups. They usually meet face-to-face, but now carried on meeting, either on the phone or virtually. One of our groups in particular is great. It's at the start of the pandemic, none of us had ever heard of Zoom, but now we have a Zoom meeting every week. We're sharing, we're holding cookery lessons, knitting lessons, we have language skills, so it's great. People have really, really made the most of virtual meetings. The fundraising is always a problem. Obviously, we had lots of events planned, fundraising events, which have all had to be put on hold. So like every organisation, fundraising is a particular problem. But we're still here and we're trying as best as we can in different ways.
So finally, how can people refer into your services?
We welcome all referrals. We're open for referrals for all of our services. The main way to refer to us is through our referral email address, which is postman@sightcymru.org.uk. And then that comes to our central office, and then they will refer you to the individual service. Rehabilitation referrals go through the local authority, but if people find it easier to refer to us, we can give people the details of the local authority. So that email address is the best way to get in touch with us.
And don't forget, if you want to contact TVA, Torfaen Voluntary Alliance, for anything regarding the third sector here in Torfaen, get in touch regarding funding, volunteering, any kind of support or governance. info@tvawales.org.uk. You can also find us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at TVA Wales, or of course on the website. It's all there at tvawales.org.uk. This podcast is produced by TVA, Torfaen Voluntary Alliance.